So I want you to think about the most mundane, just absolute autopilot conversation you have ever overheard.
Oh, like stand in line at the grocery store.
Yeah, exactly. Or, maybe you're sitting on a bus and there are two teenagers behind you and they're just talking about their morning routines or complaining about their homework.
Right, just total white noise.
Exactly. It's the kind of chatter you just instantly tune out. But what if I told you the exact seemingly boring conversation actually contains, well, it contains the entire blueprint for how a society engineers its future workforce?
That is quite the claim.
I know, right? But today, for this deep dive, we are unpacking a transcript, and it's titled The Scholarly Journey, A Conversation on School Life.
Which sounds very formal, but it's really not.
No, not at all. On paper, it's just this brief, super casual dialogue between two students, Leo and Jetro. But if we actually take the time to dissect what these two are saying to each other, it stops being a simple chat. It becomes this profound look at the architecture of modern life.
It really does. I mean, it is effectively an accidental anthropological study.
Oh, I like that phrasing.
Well, it's true. We tend to look at, massive policy documents or complex educational theories when we want to understand how our society functions.
Right, the big picture stuff.
Exactly. But the reality is that institutional values are most clearly visible in the daily habits of the people who are actually navigating those institutions.
The people on the ground.
Yeah. Like how a student gets to school,
Yeah.
where they choose to spend their 15-minute break, who they ask for help when they're drowning in assignments. None of these are random choices.
Right.
They are micro-adaptations to a massive systemic structure.
And that is exactly what we are going to extract from this deep dive today. So let's just start right at the beginning of their day.
Morning commute.
Yes, because before Leo and Jetro even step foot in a classroom, the transcript details how they actually get there. And it sets the tone for everything. So, Jetro mentions that he leaves his home at 7 a.m. and he arrives at school around 7:30 a.m.
Okay, a 30-minute window.
Right. And he says he travels by bicycle. But then, and this is the detail I love, he specifically notes that the bike ride itself takes about 20 minutes.
Right. There's a very deliberate mathematical gap there.
Exactly. 10 minutes of completely unaccounted time. If he leaves at 7:00 and gets there at 7:33, that's 30 minutes. The ride is 20. Jetro has built this 10-minute buffer into his morning.
It's fascinating.
It is. I look at that and I just think of like a decompression airlock on a submarine.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Because you can't just, open a door from the high-pressure, unpredictable environment of a busy family home directly into the heavily structured, high-stakes pressure of a classroom. You just can't.
You'd implode.
Right.
Yeah.
You need that 10-minute airlock to just equalize your mental pressure.
The submarine analogy is highly accurate mechanically, I think, because what Jetro is doing is actively constructing what psychologists call a liminal space.
A liminal space, meaning like an in-between zone.
Exactly. He isn't just teleporting from the role of son at home to the role of student at school. He is taking an active commute. And the mechanism of that commute matters deeply.
Because he's biking. He's moving.
Right. When he pedals that bicycle, the cardiovascular activity is literally increasing blood flow to the prefrontal cortex.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he is quite literally priming his brain's neuroplasticity for morning learning.
Just by riding his bike.
Exactly. But even beyond the physiology of it, that 10-minute buffer you mentioned, that gives him the ultimate psychological tool, agency. If he hits a red light, he doesn't panic. If he, wants to stop and talk to a friend at the bike racks, he has the built-in margin to do so. He is starting his entire day from a position of control.
Which stands in incredibly sharp contrast to Leo.
It really does.
Because when Jetro asks about his morning, Leo explains that he relies on the bus or, occasionally he gets a ride in a car from his parents, and that just strips away almost all of that agency you just mentioned.
Completely. I mean, Leo's morning is defined by passive transit.
Passive transit.
Right.
He is operating within systems that are entirely outside of his locus of control. He has to adapt his own personal rhythm to a municipal bus schedule or to whatever time his parents happen to need to leave for work.
He's on their time.
Yeah. He is just waiting, sitting, and being delivered.
Although, I would argue there's a distinct advantage to Leo's approach, too.
Oh, sure.
I mean, he isn't burning physical energy before his first class. He might be getting extra sleep on the bus or, mentally reviewing his homework while someone else handles the actual navigation of traffic.
And it isn't that passive transit is inherently detrimental, right? But it forces a completely different cognitive setup.
How so?
Well, Leo is practicing adherence. He is learning how to mold his behavior to fit an external, rigid schedule.
Oh, I see.
If the bus is late, that systemic failure suddenly becomes his personal emergency. And he has to manage the anxiety of that lack of control.
That is so true. So before the morning bell even rings, we have one student, Jetro, who has exercised physical autonomy, cardiovascular activation, and time margin management.
Right.
And we have another student, Leo, who has exercised patience, schedule adherence, and systemic trust. They are walking through those school doors in entirely different psychological states.
And that is so wild when you break it down like that. And that physical autonomy that Jetro establishes on his bike ride, it doesn't just vanish when he parks the bike.
No, not at all.
He carries that need for active, unstructured agency straight through the school doors. Because look at what happens the second the bell rings for break time in the transcript.
Right, the break time activities.
Yeah. The transcript outlines two radically different approaches to surviving the school day. Jetro, our autonomous cyclist, he states his favorite subject is mathematics because he loves solving problems and working with numbers.
The quantitative approach.
Right. And then during his breaks, he's out on the pitch playing football with his classmates and chatting with friends.
So it's an active, highly social mode of engagement.
Exactly. But then we look at Leo. Leo favors English. He loves vocabulary. He loves practicing conversation. And when he gets a break, he retreats to the library to read books, or he joins highly structured school clubs.
It's the classic divide.
It really feels like we are looking at the ultimate archetypal split here. Like, Leo is the humanist, the reflective introvert who seeks out quiet sanctuaries.
Yes.
And Jetro is the STEM-focused extrovert seeking physical arenas to burn off energy.
It reads almost like a psychological trope, right?
Yeah.
But it exists because it highlights this fundamental friction built into the industrial design of modern schools.
What do you mean by industrial design?
Well, we have to remember how mass education was historically engineered in the first place. The system was basically designed to batch process thousands of vastly different human beings under one roof on a perfectly synchronized timetable, mostly for the sake of efficiency.
Right, the factory model of schooling.
Exactly. So the school is tasked with catering to entirely incompatible psychological profiles simultaneously.
Yeah.
It has to provide a sanctuary for the quiet learner, the library, and an arena for the active socializer, the football pitch.
But does it actually cater to them equally?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it?
Because on paper, it sounds lovely, right? The school has a library for Leo and a football pitch for Jetro. Equality. But the institution's core metric is testing and compliance.
Yes.
So it seems to me that the environment heavily, heavily favors Leo's natural inclinations. Like quiet, reflective, language-based processing is exactly what gets rewarded on a standardized test.
Absolutely.
Whereas Jetro's kinetic energy and his social problem solving, that's essentially relegated to a 15-minute recess.
That is a very sharp critique of the environment. And you're touching on a major ongoing debate in educational theory right now.
Sure.
Yeah. The physical space might offer a pitch for Jetro to play on, but the actual pedagogical structure, sitting still for hours, passive listening, individual written assessments, it is profoundly biased toward the reflective learner.
It's built for Leo.
It's built for Leo,
Right.
which is why Jetro's morning bike ride and his frantic football breaks are so critical for him. He is intuitively self-medicating against a system that demands he suppress his natural kinetic mode of learning for 6 hours a day.
Wow.
Yeah, the school basically requires Jetro to act like Leo in order to achieve high marks.
That is fascinating. And that underlying friction, that tension, it brings us to what I think is the most vital question in the whole transcript.
Which is?
Why are they subjecting themselves to this environment in the first place?
Right. The purpose of it all.
Yeah. About halfway through the dialogue, Jetro just bluntly asks Leo, why do you think school is important?
Such a massive question for a casual chat.
I know. But Leo's answer is entirely focused on the future. He says school is important for gaining knowledge, improving abilities, and preparing for future careers.
So, economic utility.
Exactly. If I try to put a label on it, I'd say Leo views the school as a resume builder.
A resume builder. I like that.
Right. It's like a transactional factory where you exchange your time for hard skills, which you will later exchange for currency in the job market.
Pretty pragmatic.
But then Jetro adds a totally different dimension. He agrees with Leo, but he adds that school teaches discipline, teamwork, and responsibility.
Interesting shift there.
Yeah. So Jetro views the school as a character forge. It's not just about skills. It's about soft skills and present behavior, social conditioning.
The labels Resume Builder and Character Forge are really helpful shorthand, but we need to look at the actual mechanisms behind them.
Okay, unpack that for me.
Well, Leo and Jetro are unknowingly summarizing the dual and often conflicting mandate of state-sponsored education globally.
The dual mandate.
Right. On one hand, a nation needs economic engines. It needs workers who have specific, quantifiable skills to maintain infrastructure, develop technology, and drive commerce.
Right, we need engineers and doctors.
Exactly. That is Leo's mandate. Individual competence. But on the other hand, a society cannot survive if those highly skilled individuals operate as entirely selfish, disconnected agents.
Because they would just tear each other apart competing for resources.
Precisely. It would be chaos.
Yeah.
And that is where Jetro's mandate of civic compliance enters the picture.
The character forge.
Yes. The system must also enforce social contracts. It'd have to teach people how to stand in a line, how to respect artificial authority, how to resolve disputes without resorting to violence, and how to subordinate their immediate desires for the benefit of a group project.
Right, how to be a citizen.
Exactly. And the tension you see in modern political debates about what schools should teach, it almost always boils down to this exact conflict. Are we trying to build innovative, hyper-competent individualists, or are we trying to build a cohesive, compliant, disciplined society?
And the genius of this 5-minute conversation on a bus or wherever they are is that these two students seamlessly integrate both mandates.
They really do.
They recognize that individual competence without social discipline is destructive, but social discipline without individual competence is just stagnant.
They do recognize it, but, recognizing the necessity of both doesn't remove the immense pressure of having to master both simultaneously.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, the cognitive load required to build your personal economic value while constantly monitoring and adjusting your social compliance, that is staggering for an adult to manage in a workplace, let alone an adolescent.
Which perfectly explains the anxiety Jetro admits to later in the dialogue.
Right, the friction shows up.
Yeah. He confesses that he frequently struggles. He specifically says he feels completely overwhelmed when he has too many assignments.
Which is such a universal student experience.
Totally. The system pushes him to the breaking point. And this is where I think the transcript shifts from just an observation of school life to an actual survival manual.
Oh, how so?
Because Jetro doesn't say he solves this overwhelming pressure by, studying harder or doing more math practice.
No, he doesn't.
He says his coping mechanisms are time management and, crucially, asking teachers and friends for help.
And that realization right there,
Yeah.
that is arguably the most valuable education he will receive in that entire building.
Really? More than the math.
Oh, absolutely. Sociologists refer to this as the hidden curriculum.
Okay, explain how that works in this context. What is the hidden curriculum?
So the explicit curriculum is the math worksheet. It is the raw data you're supposed to memorize and regurgitate.
Right. The stuff on the test.
Yes. But the hidden curriculum is the unwritten set of rules about how to navigate a complex bureaucracy. It is learning how to identify power structures, how to self-advocate, and how to manage finite resources.
Like time.
Like time and like your own mental energy. When Jetro admits he is overwhelmed and puts his hand up to ask for help, he is recognizing that raw intelligence is often less valuable than resource mobilization.
Wait, I want to stick on that phrase, resource mobilization.
Yeah.
Are you saying the system is actively testing his ability to, find a loophole? Or to just get someone else to help him do the work?
Not a loophole. A network.
Okay.
Complex systems, whether it is a high school or a massive multinational corporation, they rarely require a single person to solve a problem in total isolation. They require distributed problem solving.
Right. You have teams for a reason.
Exactly. Jetro is learning that struggle is not an indicator of personal failure. It is an operational trigger. It's indicating that he needs to source external processing power.
Wow.
So he reaches out to the teacher or to a peer. He is learning how to manage a network.
And Leo immediately validates that strategy in the dialogue. He chimes in and says that learning together makes it enjoyable and effective.
He normalizes it.
He normalizes the communal struggle. Which brings us to their final exchange, where they essentially offer a masterclass on how to survive the system. And what fascinates me here is how their closing advice perfectly mirrors the personalities we analyzed earlier.
Oh, this part is brilliant.
It is. So Jetro, our math-focused bicycle riding pragmatist, he offers an incredibly transactional, algorithmic approach to success.
What specifically does he prescribe? Let's break it down.
He gives a 3-step formula. Attend regularly, listen carefully, and do your homework.
It's an equation.
It operates just like a mathematical equation. Input attendance, input attention, input labor. The output will equal good grades.
It is a strictly rule-based philosophy.
Hmm.
Jetro assumes he's in a rational system. He believes that if he honors the explicit social contract, if he provides that civic compliance we discussed earlier, the institution will hold up its end of the bargain and reward him with success.
It's very logical.
It is highly structured. And frankly, it is the exact baseline required to just not fail out of a bureaucracy.
It is also where a lot of people get stuck, isn't it?
What do you mean?
Well, if you just follow Jetro's rules in an adult workplace, like you show up, you listen to the boss, you do your tasks, you will probably keep your job, sure, but you aren't going to thrive.
Oh, yeah.
You just become a cog in the machine. And that is why Leo's advice is the necessary counterbalance.
Right, the humanist perspective.
Yes. Leo doesn't mention rules or homework at all in his final advice. His advice is entirely about social weaving. He says you must be active, participate in activities, and make good friends.
It is a holistic, community-centric model.
Exactly. If Jetro's advice is how you survive middle management, Leo's advice is how you reach leadership.
That's a fantastic way to frame it.
Because in the adult world, nobody really cares if you can just follow instructions. They care if you can participate in the culture, weave a network of reliable peers, and build social capital.
And this is exactly why the synthesis of their advice is so potent. You can't just have one.
Right.
Without Jetro's structural foundation, without the basic reliability of showing up and doing the work, Leo's social networking is just empty charisma.
You'd be the guy everyone likes who gets nothing done.
Exactly. You will be well-liked, but ultimately ineffective. Conversely, without Leo's community engagement, Jetro's algorithmic rule-following leads directly to isolation and burnout.
Just grinding away at the desk alone.
Right. They represent the two halves of a complete functional professional. You have to master the explicit tasks while simultaneously weaving the social fabric.
It is incredible to pull back and look at the sheer density of what we have just explored today. I mean, the mission of this deep dive was to take a microscope to a basic 5-minute text called The Scholarly Journey. What you and I just unpacked is that going to school is not just about memorizing facts.
At all.
It is a grueling daily exercise in managing your own autonomy, like Jetro carving out his decompression airlock on his bike. It is about navigating a historical, industrial machine that forces introverts and extroverts to battle for dominance in the exact same building.
Yes.
It is about balancing your personal economic value against your requirement to be a compliant citizen. And it is about learning when to stop trying to solve the problem alone and start mobilizing your network to survive that hidden curriculum.
It really forces us to respect the immense sociological heavy lifting that students are doing every single day.
So much heavy lifting.
They are not just learning subjects. They are learning how to exist within the constraints of modern society.
Which brings me to the final and frankly most provocative thought derived from the very last line of their conversation.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because after discussing all this immense pressure, both boys conclude their chat with one sweeping generalization. Jetro says, "School life can be exciting and memorable when we have a positive attitude."
And Leo agrees with him.
Yeah, Leo echoes it. He says going to school gives us opportunities to achieve our dreams, provided we maintain that positivity. They essentially hang the success of this entire crushing, complex system on the student's internal mindset.
It is the ultimate individualized coping mechanism.
Right. But I want you, the listener, to really mull this over regarding how we structure our society. If having a positive attitude is the ultimate mechanism required to make a grueling institutional experience memorable and useful, does the system place too much of the burden of success on the user?
That is a very tough question.
Think about the implications. If a student shows up and they lack that innate internal positivity, maybe they are exhausted from external circumstances?
Or maybe they're neurologically wired differently.
Exactly. Or maybe they are simply disenfranchised by a system that favors a totally different learning style. Is the institution itself designed to generate inspiration?
Or is it just passive?
Right. Is the institution just a passive machine, entirely reliant on the student generating their own psychological fuel to survive it? Who ultimately bears the burden of making education work? a massive, well-funded state apparatus, or a sleepy teenager catching the bus at 7 in the morning.
It's a profound imbalance when you look at it that way.
It is. And that tension between systemic design and individual resilience is something you see far beyond the classroom. It is the defining struggle of almost every modern institution.
Absolutely.
So keep that in mind the next time you overhear a mundane conversation about the morning commute. Until next time.